They called it the Room of Fortune until the family who owned it learned the truth. The luck that made strangers rich was eating their life. Tonight we follow a son who will face whatever was buried underneath to break a curse, or join it. Welcome to Tales at Dusk, the archive of rich African tales. If you've ever walked through Ebute-Meta on a hot afternoon, you'll understand the noise, the horns, the cries of pure water, 50 naira, the smell of fried fish mixing with petrol from passing bikes. In the middle of that chaos stood a small compound, 6 single rooms lined up like tired soldiers. The first room belonged to Mr. Festus Ume-Ego, a man whose name used to make him smile, but now only reminded him of what he didn't have. He lived there with his wife, Mama Nduka, and their only son, Nduka, a bright boy with big dreams and worn-out slippers. Festus was in his late 40s, strong, dark-skinned, and always sweating, even when sitting still. He had tried everything, selling spare parts, helping bricklayers, even shoe mending, but life never gave him more than enough to feed for the day. Still, Festus had one habit. Every evening, when the compound went quiet, he would sit on a wooden stool outside his room, staring at the streetlights, whispering, "One day I go make I go make am." The neighbors often laughed. So make am, they would mock. But his wife always consoled him, "Festus, no mind them. He get time way God go remember us." She was a patient woman, the type who could make soup from almost nothing and still serve it with pride. Life continued like that, slow, predictable, and poor, until one hot evening when fate decided to visit. That evening, Festus had gone to a local palm wine joint near the railway line. He wasn't much of a drinker, but that day he needed to forget the shame of being insulted by one of his tenants who hadn't paid rent in 3 months. As he sat, sipping the sour drink and staring into space, an old man approached, short, wrinkled, with eyes that looked both tired and powerful. He wore a faded red cap and carried a walking stick carved with strange symbols. The old man sat beside him without asking. "Your spirit is restless," the old man said quietly. Festus turned, surprised. "Oga, you know me?" The man smiled faintly. "I know what I see. You have a hand that gives, but fate that takes. You work hard, but nothing to show." "Abi, I lie?" Festus swallowed hard. "You no lie, Baba." The man leaned closer. "You can change it. There is something called Okeiteh. It is not charm. It is destiny rearranged. Only those who are bold take that step." Festus stared at him, confused but curious. "Baba, wetin be that one?" "Okeiteh is a way to open your road," the old man whispered. "You bury a pot of fortune, and as long as you remain where it sleeps, everything you touch will prosper." Festus laughed nervously. "Baba, you dey whine me?" The man smiled again. "It may sound like film, but your poverty is real. No be so." Festus fell silent. The man's words struck deep. He continued, "When you're ready, come to me. My house dey for the end of Ilogbo Street, by the river. Ask for Pa Odogwu." Before Festus could reply, the old man stood up, tapped his stick twice on the floor, and slowly walked away into the night. Festus sat there, his heart racing. He tried to shake off the thought, bury a pot for wealth? But the idea refused to leave his mind. That night, while Mama Nduka and Nduka slept, he lay awake staring at the ceiling. The sound of mosquitoes buzzed around him, but his thoughts were louder. He whispered to himself, "What if na my only chance? This fit be my opportunity, oh." And with that question, Festus Ume-Ego's life began to drift towards something far darker than he could ever imagine. The next morning after meeting Pa Odogwu, Festus couldn't think straight. Even as he brushed his teeth outside the compound, the man's words echoed in his head. You bury a pot of fortune, and as long as you remain where it sleeps, everything you touch will prosper. He tried to laugh it off, but deep inside, curiosity had taken root like stubborn weed. He didn't tell his wife, not yet. She was too prayerful, too cautious. If she even heard the word ritual, she would scream until the entire street gathered. So for 2 nights, Festus battled his thoughts. Then, on the 3rd night, when the moon hid behind thick clouds, he quietly slipped out of the compound, wearing only a black shirt and slippers. The path to Ilogbo Street by the river was quiet, too quiet. The air smelled of wet soil and secrets. Dogs barked in the distance, and frogs croaked from muddy corners. Festus's heart thumped faster than his footsteps. At the very end of the narrow path stood a small mud hut with a red cloth tied to its doorpost. It looked abandoned, but a faint orange glow flickered inside. He hesitated, then knocked lightly. "Come in," a voice croaked. When Festus stepped in, he almost turned back. The air was thick with incense. On a small wooden table sat candles, cowries, and a small earthen pot covered with palm leaves. Behind the table sat Pa Odogwu, the same old man from the palm wine joint, only this time he looked different. His eyes glowed faintly in the candlelight, and his tone was no longer casual. "You came," he said. "It means your spirit is ready." Festus tried to steady his voice. "Baba, I just want better my life. Poverty don't tire me." The old man nodded slowly. "Okeiteh does not give to the lazy. It gives to those who are desperate enough to pay the price." Festus blinked. "Price? Nothing good comes free, my son." Pa Odogwu stood up, his wrapper dragging softly against the floor. "The deity of Okeiteh will open your way, but it must first eat." He pointed to a small cage in the corner. Inside, a dog whined softly, its eyes glowing like it knew what was coming. Festus froze. "Baba, I no understand." The old man's voice deepened. "Okeiteh must drink the blood of life before granting fortune. The sacrifice must be done tonight. After that, you will bury this pot inside your room, deep under the very spot you sleep. As long as you live there, wealth will follow you like shadow follows man." Festus's mouth went dry. "You mean I must—" "Slaughter the dog yourself," Pa Odogwu interrupted. "If your hand cannot take, then your destiny cannot receive." Festus stood there, trembling. Every part of him screamed run away, but the thought of another year of struggle held him still. He thought of Nduka's worn slippers. He thought of his wife's tired face. He thought of his own shame. And then he nodded. "I go do am." Pa Odogwu smiled, a slow, chilling smile, and handed him the small earthen pot of Okeiteh tied around with red thread. He showed Festus what to say, how to pour the dog's blood on the ground, and how to bury the pot before sunrise. That night, Festus returned home trembling, the pot hidden inside a black nylon bag. The compound was asleep. Only the hum of mosquitoes filled the air. He carried the dog in quietly, its whimper breaking his heart, but he remembered the old man's warning. If your hand cannot take, your destiny cannot receive. So he whispered a short apology under his breath, drew a small cut on the dog's neck, and let the blood drip over the floor where he would bury the pot. The moment the blood touched the ground, a strange wind blew across the room, even though all the windows were shut. The lamp flickered. For a second, he thought he heard a low growl echoing from the floor. His heart pounded, but he did everything as instructed, poured the remaining blood into the soil, buried the pot right in the center of his room, and sealed it with the same sand. When it was done, silence returned, a heavy silence. Festus knelt on the floor, sweating and shaking. "Okeiteh, if you'd hear me," he whispered, "I beg, make this thing work." He fell asleep, sitting up, his head against the wall, and for the first time in his life he dreamed. In the dream he saw himself standing in the middle of a large field filled with coins, cars, and gold, and above him a deep, thunderous voice said, "The ground has eaten. The covenant is sealed." He woke up at dawn, trembling but smiling faintly. He didn't know what awaited him, but one thing was sure. His life would never remain the same again. He had barely slept. The image of the buried pot haunted him, that small red pot that now rested right beneath the spot where his feet touched the floor. For a moment, he felt foolish. "So I just killed dog for nothing," he muttered. But deep inside, a strange calm filled him, like something had shifted, something invisible but powerful. That day, he went out as usual to chase small jobs. He had applied for a local contract weeks before, one that he had given up on. But around noon, his phone rang. It was the contractor. "Mr. Festus, congratulations. Oh, you don't win the job. Come collect your documents for Alausa." Festus nearly dropped his phone. He ran all the way home, shouting, "Mamanduka!" The job dawn enter. It dawn enter. His wife came out of the kitchen with both hands on her head. "En, you sure?" "Yes, oh, now government small maintenance contract." They both laughed and danced in the small compound, attracting curious neighbors. That was only the beginning. Within days, more good news followed. A debtor who had refused to pay him for months suddenly showed up and cleared his balance. Another friend offered him contract to build a mini estate at Alausa. Even people who used to ignore him suddenly started greeting him with respect. It was as if a veil had been lifted from his destiny. By the end of that month, Festus had earned more money than he had ever held in his life. He fixed the leaking roof, bought new things for his family, and started making plans to buy lands. But while everything seemed bright in the day, the nights began to feel strange. Every night around 1 a.m., Festus would hear a soft thumping sound from beneath his bed. At first he thought it was a rat, but when he bent down to look, the sound stopped. Sometimes he swore he heard a faint growl, like a dog panting. And on one night, when he woke to drink water, he saw something that froze his blood. 2 red eyes staring at him from under the floor. He screamed and jumped up, but when he lit the lamp, nothing was there. A few days later, he decided to visit Pa Odogwu again. "Baba," he said, breathing heavily, "things don't begin go well-o. But I dey hear strange noise from my room. Sometimes I dey see red eye." "You mean say something dey wrong?" The old man chuckled. "Nothing dey wrong, my son. Okeiteh has accepted your offering. The eyes you see are his presence. You are no longer alone in that room." Festus frowned. "So Okeiteh dey live with me?" "In a way," Pa Odogwu replied. "He watches over the pot. Never fear. Never move it. And above all, never leave that room. If you move, your fortune will die." Festus nodded slowly, his fear mixing with awe. "Remember," the old man added, "Okeiteh is a spirit of exchange. He gives and takes. Keep his spot sacred, and your light will never dim days turned into weeks, and weeks into months." True to Baba's words, everything Festus touched began to turn to gold. He bought a brand new car. He even purchased land in the same area and started building a bungalow. For the first time in his life, people began to call him Chief Festus. Neighbors whispered behind his back, wondering how his story changed so fast. Some said he joined secret society, others said his star finally shined. But Festus didn't care. He only smiled and said, "Now God's time be this." Mom Nduka couldn't hide her joy. Their son Nduka now attended a better school. Life was sweet, almost too sweet. Yet every night before sleeping, Festus would feel that familiar presence, the quiet, heavy air, the faint smell of blood that wouldn't leave the floor. Sometimes, in his half-sleep, he heard a voice whisper his name, "Festus, remember me." He would wake up shaking, but he never told anyone. He believed it was the price for success, a small discomfort for a big reward. But he didn't know that the spirit of Okeiteh was far from done with him. Within 1 year, he finished building a modern bungalow on his new land. Cream walls, green roof, wide veranda, and a borehole that never ran dry. It was everything he had ever dreamed of. When his wife saw it for the first time, tears rolled down her cheeks. "Festus, so we fit live like this?" she whispered. He laughed proudly. "No easy, Mama Nduka. From single room to this kind house. God too good." They held a small housewarming party, invited church members and neighbors, and danced until nightfall. But when it was time to move in, Festus said something strange. "Mama Nduka, you and Nduka go first. I'll join you later." His wife looked at him, confused. "Join us? Aren't you coming with us?" He smiled faintly, trying to sound casual. "No worry. I still get small repair work to do for the old place. I fit day sleep there, small till I finish," she frowned. "But Festus, you get new house now. Why you want continue to day sleep for that old room?" "No worry," he hesitated. "I go day here, so that tenants no go mess up this compound." But deep down, he knew the truth. He couldn't leave that room. That night, after dropping his wife and son at the new house, Festus returned quietly to his old compound. He opened the door to room 1, and a cool breeze blew against his face. Strange, because all the windows were shut. He sat on his bed and whispered, "Okeiteh, I no forget you." I day here, the faint smell of blood filled the room again, followed by a low humming sound, like wind circling a pot. And then he heard it, the voice, soft, deep, calm. "As long as your feet remain on this ground, your riches will remain. Move away and everything you have will vanish." Festus froze. His skin prickled with fear. "I hear you," he whispered. "I no go move." Weeks passed. Mom Nduka complained every day. "Festus, people go begin talk which kind man go build new house leave him wife alone inside?" Festus only smiled. "No worry, I go come." But he never came. Every evening he returned to the small room, sat in silence, and talked softly to the floor, like a man praying. At night he sometimes saw shadows crawling along the wall. But instead of fear, he felt peace, like he was among old friends. In his dreams, Okeiteh appeared again, tall, faceless, dressed in red smoke. "You have done well," it said. "I will multiply your blessings, but remember, I eat what keeps you alive." Festus woke up, panting. The words echoed in his head. "I eat what keeps you alive." He didn't understand it. Or maybe he didn't want to. Soon after, more success followed. He bought another piece of land. He started a small transport business with 2 buses. Everything prospered, until one night, Okeiteh came again. The voice was stronger this time. "Feed me again." Festus sat up, trembling. "Feed you? With what? You know what I like." And before dawn, Festus went out and returned with another dog. He performed the same sacrifice quietly, blood dripping into the soil. The next morning, his business doubled again. To everyone around him, it was a miracle. To Festus, it was a transaction. But Mamanduka noticed he had changed. His laughter sounded forced. He talked less and stared at the floor too often. One evening, she held his hand gently. "Festus, talk to me. You day all right?" He smiled weakly. "I day fine, my wife. No stress." But the truth was that Festus was no longer fully himself. The same charm that brought him wealth was now drawing him deeper into darkness, quietly, patiently, like a spider wrapping its prey. And though he didn't know it yet, Okeiteh's hunger was growing. The blood of animals would no longer be enough. The floor of the room has begun to feel alive. Whenever he stepped over the spot where the Okeiteh pot was buried, the ground pulsed faintly. Like a heartbeat, he tried to ignore it. Until one night the voice came again. It was just past 2 a.m. when Festus woke up, drenched in sweat. At first he thought it was a nightmare, until he realized someone or something was in the room with him. A shadow moved across the wall, bending like smoke. Then that same voice from his dreams, calm, deep, and ancient, spoke again. "Festus," he froze. "The blood of the dog has served its purpose," the voice continued, "but the season has changed." "I hunger again." Festus's throat went dry. "Okeiteh, what do you want this time?" The voice echoed slowly. "The blood of man, the life of flesh. Feed me, or I feed on you." He screamed and covered his ears, trembling violently. The lamp flickered and the air turned cold. Then, silence. He stayed awake till morning, shaking, whispering prayers he didn't even believe anymore. The next few days were torture. Festus tried to distract himself, buried himself in work, helped neighbors, even visited church once just to balance things. But the peace never came. At night the dreams returned. In them he saw faces of people he knew, some laughing, some crying, and all dripping blood. The deity's voice followed every dream, saying the same thing: "Feed me. The covenant demands it." He stopped eating. His eyes sank deep. His wife begged him to see a doctor, but he only said, "I'm fine." One night he finally broke down. He returned to Pa-Odogwu, desperate and shaking. "Baba, Okeiteh dey disturb me, oh. He say make I give him human blood. I no fit do that kind thing." Pa-Odogwu's face was calm. "You were warned, Festus. Okeiteh does not bless without price. Every fortune must feed its foundation." Festus fell to his knees. "Baba, I beg, there must be another way." The old man sighed. "You can delay, but you cannot deny. If you fail to feed the covenant, it will collect from you." He leaned close, whispering, "Okeiteh always eats what belongs to his servant, one way or another." Festus left trembling. That night he couldn't close his eyes. Days turned into weeks, and his world began to crumble. His first transport bus crashed mysteriously on 3rd Mainland Bridge. His shop got robbed. His tenants began to owe again. Everywhere he turned, he saw signs. Black birds hovering around the compound, his shadow moving before him, whispers that followed him in the market. He knew the Okeiteh was waiting. One night, as he sat alone in his room, the lamp suddenly went out. The air thickened, and then from under the floor came a low, angry growl, not like a dog's, but something deeper, heavier. "Festus," the voice hissed, "you think you can keep my portion?" He jumped up, screaming, "Okeiteh, I beg, no do me, I beg you." But the floor cracked open slightly, and cold air rushed out like a sigh from the underworld. Festus ran out barefoot, shouting into the night, "Leave me! I no fit kill person, oh." By dawn he was calm again, but the look in his eyes had changed. He began talking to himself, pacing around, muttering things nobody could understand. Mamanduka cried day and night, begging him to leave the old house, but he refused. He stopped eating, stopped sleeping, and one morning Nduka went to call his father for breakfast, only to find him lying cold on the bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling, as if he was still seeing something that the living could not. Festus Ume-Ego was dead. The autopsy found nothing wrong. No sickness, no poison, just gone. The whole of Ebute-Meta mourned. Neighbors said he was too good a man to die so suddenly, but only the walls of room 1 knew the truth, that the debt of Okeiteh had finally been collected. After his burial, life moved on, at least on the surface. Mama Nduka and Nduka stayed in the new bungalow Festus had built, trying to start over. But slowly things began to change. The transport business that once brought steady income collapsed. The drivers disappeared one after another. The tenants in the new house stopped paying rent. The savings Festus left behind finished mysteriously, not because they wasted it, but because every time she counted her money, it always came up short. Still, Mama Nduka tried to be strong. Maybe a normal setback, she told herself, but deep inside she felt a strange fear of the old compound, the one at Ebute-Meta. She avoided passing there, especially at night. Months passed, the economy grew harder, and bills piled up. Mamanduka had no choice. She decided to rent out room 1, the same room Festus had occupied until his death. One evening, a young man wearing his NYSC uniform knocked on the gate. "Good evening, Ma. My name is Okeiteh Adesanya. I just got posted to Lagos. I hear say you get single room for rent." Mama Nduka hesitated but nodded. "Yes, my late husband room. You sure you on rent, am?" The young man smiled. Yes, Ma." She smiled weakly. "If you say so." 150,000 naira yearly. He counted the cash immediately. And just like that, room 1 came back to life. The first few days were uneventful. Okeiteh Adesanya cleaned the place, changed the curtains, and even painted the walls. But within weeks, strange things began to happen. His monthly allowance doubled after he was assigned to an oil company for his primary assignment. Within 2 months, the company offered him a permanent position. Before his youth service ended, he got a job letter from NNPC itself, something thousands of graduates could only dream of. Everyone was shocked. How one corper get government work before POP, they asked. Even Mama Nduka couldn't hide her surprise. When he finally moved out, he came to thank her. "Ma, your room carry good luck, oh. Since I enter that place, everything they favor me." She only smiled faintly and wished him well, but deep down something about his words made her uneasy. After he left, she rented the room again, this time to a struggling family, Mr. and Mrs. Ubida, and their 2 children. They were kind people who had been searching for a better life for years. Barely 6 months after moving in, they won a U.S. visa lottery. Within weeks, they relocated to America. "It be like na miracle," Mrs. Ubida said before leaving. "God go bless you, Mama Nduka." That room, the blessing room, those words made chills run down her spine. Blessing room? She didn't tell anyone, but the thought haunted her. Still, she needed money, and as the years passed, room 1 became the most sought-after space in the whole area. People began to whisper, "If you rent that room, your life go change." And truly, it did, for everyone who stayed there. But there was one thing no one noticed. While fortune smiled on the tenants, misfortune multiplied for the Ume-Ego family. No matter how much rent they collected, the money disappeared. Whenever Mamanduka tried to save, something unexpected happened. Sickness, accidents, loss. It was as if invisible hands were swallowing the money as fast as it came. And at night, when the wind blew through the window, she sometimes heard a faint whisper from afar. "You thought you buried me." She would wake up trembling, clutching her Bible, but never spoke a word about it. Because deep down she knew the story of Festus Ume-Ego was not over. The price of blood was still being collected. They said good news travels fast, but in Ebute-Meta, strange news travels faster. Before long, everyone had heard about Room 1 in the old Ume-Ego compound, the same room where Mr. Festus had lived and died. They said anyone who stayed there became successful within 1 year. It started as whispers. Then, as more people experienced it, the whispers turned to stories, and the stories turned into a legend. People began to call it the Room of Fortune. After the Ubida family left for America, tenants lined up to rent it. Some came from far away. Even those who pretended not to believe in charms found themselves curious. "No harm in trying," they said. One man even joked, "If na charm dey make people successful, I beg let me go pack inside before my neighbor reach there." The next person to get the room was a middle-aged man named Mr. Chris. Mr. Chris was the kind of man life had beaten down repeatedly. He once owned a small printing business that collapsed after a fire incident. His wife left him. His friends abandoned him. When he came to rent the room, his eyes looked tired, the eyes of a man who had stopped expecting good things from life. He met Mamanduka sitting outside her house and said quietly, "Madam, I look for house, just one room. I no get plenty money, but I go maintain the place." She hesitated for a moment, looking at him closely. Something in her heart told her to say no, but the weight of unpaid bills silenced her. "Okay," she said softly. "Nah, 350,000 naira now." He looked surprised. "Ah, for one single room?" She shrugged. "That room get history. Anybody way enter, good thing they follow, He laughed nervously. "I need good thing, madam. Maybe na my turn." He paid immediately. At first, nothing seemed unusual, but after a few months, everything began to change. A man who had been living on borrowed clothes suddenly started receiving phone calls from old contacts. One of them, a politician he had helped years ago, invited him to a meeting. Within 6 months, Mr. Chris was appointed as a special advisor in one of the state ministries. A man who had almost given up now drove into the compound in a brand new SUV. When neighbors asked how it happened, he would just smile and say, "God works in mysterious ways." But everyone in Ebute-Meta knew which mysterious way he meant. The legend of the Room of Fortune had grown stronger. People started doing the unthinkable. They bribed Mamanduka just to get their name on the waiting list. Some even fought physically over who would move in next. It became the most expensive single room in all of Ebute-Meta, almost the same rent as a 3-bedroom flat in Ikoyi. And yet people still begged to pay. To the Ume-Ego family, it looked like a blessing. The money kept coming in, thicker and faster than before, but strangely, the more they earned, the more they suffered. Bills never stopped. Every new month came with one unexpected problem. Hospital bills, stolen property, accidents, loss. If they made 2 million naira today, by next week, something would swallow it. It was as if invisible hands were taking their share before they could even count. Mama Nduka sometimes sat alone on the veranda, staring into space. "How can money come like this and still vanish like breeze?" she often murmured. Her son, Nduka, now a young man, also noticed the pattern. "Mama, this money no day ever stay. You sure say something no day wrong with that room?" She sighed deeply. "I no again, my son. But we can't complain. Now that same room where your papa live inside before everything changed for him. Maybe his spirit dey bless others, but the truth was darker. It wasn't Festus's spirit blessing anyone. It was Okeiteh, still feeding through the pot buried deep beneath the floor. Each tenant that prospered wasn't just lucky. They were paying unknowingly with the fortune that should have belonged to the Ume-Ego family. Every success that entered the room was drawn out of the bloodline of the man who had buried the charm. No matter how much rent Mama Nduka collected, her own life never improved. If 3 million naira came in this month, 3,010,000 naira would vanish the next. Hospital bills, broken borehole, market loss, endless expenses. One evening she sat outside with her son, Nduka, the sunset painting their faces in gold. "Mama," he said quietly, "you ever notice say that room dey bless everybody we stay inside, but he never bless us?" She sighed. "My peekin, I dey think the same thing. Now your papa room, yet we no get anything from aim. Maybe if one of us move inside, this our story go change too." Nduka hesitated. "You mean move back inside?" "Why not?" she said, her eyes lighting up. "The luck suppose reach us too. Maybe that's why we dey suffer, because we abandon the place." Her words lingered in the air like smoke. Nduka didn't reply immediately. He stared into space, thinking of all they had lost, the struggle, the hunger, the quiet shame. Maybe his mother was right. Maybe the room would favor them the same way it favored others. 2 days later, another man came to rent room 1, a trader from the east named Mr. Chukwudi. He was ready with full payment, but when he arrived, Mama Nduka stopped him. "Sorry, my son, I no go fit rent you the room again." The man looked confused. Why now? We don't agree price." "I know," she said softly, "but my family want use the room now." He frowned. "Madam, abeg think am well. Why you come change mind?" She smiled politely. "Try another place, sir. I want use the room." That night, Nduka and his mother went to clean the room. As soon as they opened the door, a thick, stale air escaped, the kind that made the skin crawl. The lamp flickered weakly, throwing long shadows across the wall. Everything looked ordinary, yet the atmosphere felt alive. Nduka bent down to sweep, but paused suddenly. For a brief second, he felt something move beneath the floor, like a vibration. He brushed it off. When Nduka and his mother finally moved into room 1, they expected blessings. Instead, their lives turned into a nightmare. Every night, something unseen tormented them. The air grew cold, shadows crawled along the walls. Sometimes they heard a dog barking beneath the floor. Other times, whispers called their names in the dark. Sleep became impossible. Fear became normal. On the 4th night, Nduka had a dream that felt too real to ignore. He found himself standing in a red mist, and there stood his father, Festus, looking pale and broken. "My son," he said, "you must free us. Okeiteh is still feeding on our bloodline. The pot I buried is under the ground. To destroy it, you must first urinate on that spot. Only then will the spirit lose its power." Nduka woke up crying in his sleep, trembling, his heart pounding. "Mama," he whispered. "Papa spoke to me." Shocked but desperate, they followed the instructions. As Nduka urinated on the floor, a violent wind tore through the room. The lamp flickered. The ground shook. Something hissed beneath them. Angry, alive, terrified, they clung to each other as the sound grew louder. Then Nduka grabbed a shovel and began to dig. When the metal hit the pot, a scream filled the room. Not human, not animal, just pain. He struck again and again until the pot shattered, releasing black smoke that vanished through the window. Silence followed. The air turned warm. The fear was gone. Mother and son held each other, crying in relief. They were finally free. Nduka and his mother returned to their bungalow. Later in their lives, small miracles began to happen. Their business grew, their debts cleared. Opportunities came without struggle. The tenants noticed it too. The compound felt alive again, peaceful, normal. The room of fortune was just a room now. No luck, no charm, no whispers. Some said its power died. But the truth was that the curse had been broken. Not every quick blessing is a blessing. Some prosperity is paid in someone else's life, and a fortune that costs your soul is never worth keeping. Would you choose the money if you knew the price? Tell us in the comments. And if this story gripped you, like, subscribe, and share so more people can hear it.